Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Reverend Matt and I'm the Connectionalist. Let's talk about niche Christian denominations today. There's a video from Redeemed Zoomer called "The Weirdest Christian Denominations," I'm really curious to see. There's a lot of really like niche Christian traditions that are super interesting. And I kind of want to explore that today. And so let's do that together. Let's go ahead and just jump right on into the video so we can learn from one another. Make sure you go drop a like and subscribe to Redeemed Zoomer. He does a lot of really good work. So yeah, make sure you drop a like and subscribe to him.
Some Christians think you're going to hell for using the wrong calendar. Some Christians are so Catholic they think Mary is really present in communion. If you study denominations
Wow.
for a living like I do, you'll find a lot that are heretical, but some that are not exactly heretical, they're just weird. First up is Western Orthodoxy. You heard me, Western Orthodoxy.
It's crazy like how long I've been in like the church space and like how long I studied. And I've literally never heard of Western Orthodoxy. Never even heard of this.
Not Catholicism, not Eastern Orthodoxy, Western Orthodoxy. It includes the Celtic Orthodox Church and the French
Interesting.
Orthodox Church and a few others. Now, this is also not to be confused with Western Rite Orthodoxy.
So one of the things, let's go back for a second. So the Celtic Orthodox, let's talk about the Celtic tradition, because that's something I haven't done a video on. I had a professor in college. Well, he was the chaplain. He's a United Methodist elder. He was the chaplain, and he just retired from active ministry. And he studied the Celtic Christian traditions pretty heavily. He wrote a book about it. And it's really interesting. The Celtic tradition in Ireland is so interesting because Christianity developed there apart from the influence of the Roman Empire. So the Roman Empire only took about half of the British Isle and it never took Ireland. And so Christianity kind of naturally developed in Ireland completely apart from the cultural influence of the Roman Empire. And so you kind of get this completely different, I want to say, twist on Christianity in terms of its aesthetics, some theological, not like hard theological differences because it is Catholicism, but like the way it's expressed aesthetically, acts of worship, ritual, all that stuff, art. So it's really, really interesting. I just thought I'd throw that out there. It's something many people would probably be interested in.
Church and a few others. Now, this is also not to be confused with Western Rite Orthodoxy, which is basically Eastern Orthodoxy, but with Western, usually Anglican liturgical traditions. Usually these are Anglican churches that
That's
have left
crazy.
Anglicanism
Okay.
and come into communion with mainstream Eastern Orthodoxy.
Okay.
But Western Orthodoxy is not in communion with mainstream Eastern Orthodoxy, even though it has the same theology and many of the same traditions. This is its own thing. It is very small, but it still exists.
Wow.
It started when some Catholic priests in France and Ireland left Catholicism and joined Eastern Orthodoxy, but for various reasons are no longer in communion with the rest of Eastern Orthodoxy. Now, the true Orthodox
Okay.
definitely are Eastern. In fact, they were too Eastern for Eastern Orthodoxy. This is basically a much more conservative version of Eastern Orthodoxy. Sometimes they're called the Old Calendarists, because as some of you might know, Eastern Orthodoxy traditionally uses a different calendar than
Right.
Western Christianity. But in recent years, some Orthodox churches have allowed themselves to shift towards the same calendar that Catholics and Protestants use
Yeah.
for the sake of ecumenical unity.
Which is a really good thing because calendar stuff doesn't really matter. So it's a really, really good thing. Yeah, a lot of Christian dates and feasts or festivals or holidays were chosen during the Middle Ages, and Orthodoxy and Catholicism kind of parted on quite a few calendar items, like the date of how the date of Easter is figured and all that kind of stuff.
But there are a lot of Eastern Orthodox Christians who don't like ecumenism with Catholics and Protestants. In Eastern Orthodoxy, liturgy, which includes the calendar, is the essence of the faith. So if you change the calendar, you're changing the liturgy, and if you change the liturgy, you're changing the faith. So they
Yeah,
basically
it's too much.
anathematized not only all the Orthodox churches who use the new calendar, but all Orthodox churches in communion with Orthodox churches who use the new calendar.
Yeah, that's
So they consider themselves
wild.
the one true church, and everyone else, including the world Orthodox, is heretical. Unlike some of these groups, they actually have a substantial population, especially in certain countries. They have a much more conservative interpretation and application of the ecumenical councils and their canons than the
Okay.
World Orthodox. And they separated with World Orthodoxy in the 20th century. But there's another Orthodox group that separated with World Orthodoxy much earlier. The Old Believers are too truly Orthodox for the true Orthodox.
Okay. This is galaxy brain. So we got the Eastern Orthodox. Then we have the Old Orthodox, use the old calendar. And these are the like old Orthodox. This is crazy right here because these look like Mormons to me, but I'm pretty sure they're not, or not Mormons. Sorry. They look like Mennonites to me. Wrong M group I was talking about there. But he's got like the little like Orthodox teaching position right here. You can see I'm circling that with my mouse, but the dress looks like American, like Mennonite dress, but I'm pretty sure this is probably going to be European based, right? And some of this looks somewhat like Eastern European, like the shawls look Eastern European. So this is really interesting. So this group is more traditional than the super traditional Orthodox. And the Eastern Orthodox Church is already super traditional. I don't even know how that's possible.
Russian Old Believers are basically
Russian,
the Amish
okay.
of Eastern Orthodoxy.
Yeah.
They separated from mainstream Eastern
So he said they're like the Amish. Okay.
Orthodoxy over many things, including whether to cross yourself with 2 or 3 fingers. Basically, in the 1600s, the Russian Orthodox Church made a lot of liturgical reforms that the Old Believers didn't like. So the Old Believers believe they are preserving the true faith and liturgy that most of Eastern Orthodoxy has abandoned. Remember, if liturgy is everything, like it is in Orthodoxy, then liturgical changes are changes to the faith, which is not acceptable.
Ooh. Yeah, I mean, wow. Quite a place to draw a line in the sand.
The Old Believers live in very traditional farming communities, and there are lots of them scattered in the rural areas of traditionally Orthodox countries, and some in traditionally Orthodox colonies like Alaska, Washington, and Oregon. Next up, we have British Orthodoxy. Now, all the groups we covered so far are related to Eastern Orthodoxy somehow, but British Orthodoxy is actually related to Oriental Orthodoxy, which has been separate from Eastern Orthodoxy since the year 451 over whether Jesus has 1 or 2 natures.
Right.
So the British Orthodox...
Right, and let me move my camera here. So, yes, this is one of the early ecumenical councils. Don't ask me which one. I'm really bad at remembering. But the Orthodox position, and not just the Eastern Orthodox, the general, I believe, Orthodox position of both Eastern and Western churches is that Jesus has two natures. And then we also talk about Jesus having 2 wills as well, a divine will and a human will. The Oriental Orthodoxy is different from that. So it's interesting that there's a British offshoot of the Oriental Orthodox Church.
Orthodox Church is Oriental Orthodox in theology and liturgy. They believe that Jesus has only 1 nature that is a union of 2 natures. Why are they not in communion with mainstream Oriental Orthodoxy? Because they're a continuation of this British movement that believes ancient Celtic Christianity was actually Oriental Orthodox. Next, we have
And we were just talking about Celtic Christianity, so they believe that the ancient Celtic Church was Oriental Orthodox, which is interesting because it was definitely Roman Catholic.
Old Catholics. I'm Catholic and I'm old. No.
Oh, that was mildly funny.
The Old Catholics separated from mainstream Catholicism at the First Vatican Council, when the Roman Catholic Church declared that the Pope is infallible under certain conditions. Other Catholics thought that this contradicted previous Catholic teachings like the Council of Constance, so they became the Old Catholics because they believe they are preserving the Old Catholic faith.
There's also a group called the Sedevacantists, which Sedevacante means, I'm pretty sure it's Latin, it's vacant chair, right? I think that's Latin for like a vacant chair, meaning the Pope has been vacant. There's not been a Pope in decades because of the mistakes of the First and Second Vatican Councils. I wonder if I think the Old Catholics are different from the Sedevacantists, though, because the Sedevacantists, I'm pretty sure they disagreed with the Second Vatican Council, which was in the early 1960s, and they think there hasn't been a legitimate Pope since the early 1960s.
These days, Old Catholics are basically a hybrid between Roman Catholicism and Anglicanism, and are often in communion with various Anglo-Catholic groups. Fun fact, Calvin Robinson was briefly part of the Old Catholics when he was on his denominational speedrun. Next up we have Sedevacantists, which means literally,
Yeah.
the See of Peter is vacant. They believe that we haven't had a real pope since...
I'm pretty sure, I could look this up. I'm pretty sure sede is like chair, or seat. But I could be absolutely totally wrong about that. I don't know. I'll look it up afterwards. I'm pretty sure I'm right. If I'm not, the See of Peter, the papacy, is vacant. But I think sede is, it says the See of Peter, but I always thought it was chair or seat.
Vatican II. If the Old Catholics split off after Vatican I, the Sedevacantists split off...
Yes. Look, this does not matter, but I've been studying Latin, so I'm really trying right now, okay? Sede is like seat or chair because that's the root for the word sedentary. Like you're sedentary, you sit. So I'm pretty sure I'm right about that. I've probably spent 2 minutes saying I'm right about that when I'm not, but I'm pretty sure it's the root of the word sedentary. So I'm pretty sure it means like seated or seat or chair.
Too. If the Old Catholics split off after Vatican I,
Right.
the Sedevacantists split off after Vatican II because they
right.
believed Vatican II contradicted previous Catholic teachings.
Which it did. Like my position, my opinion is that it did contradict, and Catholics really don't like when you say that. And look, I'm not here to attack Catholics, okay? I like the Catholic Church. I'm just saying, from my perspective, you did contradict earlier ecumenical councils, like when you used to say Protestants are anathema, and then all of a sudden they're dearly departed brethren. That's just like two different things. And there's somebody who's going to definitely be like, well, that's not actually, and it's like, yeah, that's what it means, man. Come on, like let's get real with each other for a second. And so I get why a lot of Catholics got upset, because they are like, well, the ecumenical councils are infallible, so why are we changing stuff? And so there are quite a few Sedevacantists, I'm pretty sure.
Because Vatican II teaches that we worship the same God as Muslims,
right.
that Muslims can be saved, and that Protestants are departed brethren.
Right.
So Sedevacantists believe
that's what I was literally just saying. So
they are the true Catholic Church, and
right.
that the Vatican II Catholic Church, meaning the mainstream one, is apostate, and the chair of Peter, meaning the papacy, has been vacant.
Okay, there we go.
Then.
I knew it meant chair.
Sedevacantist media, like Peter Diamond, will often try and talk about evidences of liberalism in the modern Catholic Church to prove that they are the real Catholics. Some Sedevacantists set up their own parallel papacies, like the Palomarian Church in Spain. They
cool.
teach that not only is Jesus physically present in communion, but so is Mary. Now let's talk about...
Whoa, that's like super Catholic. Yeah, I think that's a little problematic. But, whatever.
About some Protestants, finally. The Netherlands Reformed Church is a tiny hyper-Calvinist schismatic group. They are very conservative, all the women wear head coverings, they're known for being very legalistic, and for causing people to struggle with assurance of salvation. They teach that the covenant of grace, which includes the gospel and the sacraments, is only for the elect. So they often have large churches, but very few people actually receive communion, because they believe you shouldn't receive communion unless you're certain that you're one of the elect. And the gospel is not really for you if you're not elect, so the gospel doesn't really give anyone assurance of salvation unless they are perfectly convinced that they are elect anyway.
This stuff's just hyper problematic, right? Because you're just then missing the whole gospel of grace. You're just missing the whole point. It's so silly. I wish this stuff didn't happen, but it does.
From the mainstream Dutch Reformed churches, because they didn't like how the Dutch Reformed would offer the gospel to everyone, like every Christian ever has.
Right.
Another hyper-Calvinist group is the Primitive Baptists, even though you can't really call them Calvinists at all because they're Baptists and they don't have a Calvinist view of the sacraments, yada yada. But generally, hyper-Calvinism...
Always like the little icons that RSD makes for the different denominations. It's funny, too, because they're made in, like, Microsoft Paint. And I love how, like, low, like, quality it is. I just think it's funny. They're kind of cool.
Means taking Calvinism to conclusions that Calvin and the Reformed confessions would forbid. Primitive Baptists basically believe...
And when I mean low quality, I'm not dissing RZ. Like, low quality like MS Paint drawings are like part of his shtick. It's like part of the persona. So I get what he's trying to do.
Believe that because the elect are going to be saved no matter what, because they're predestined to be saved, you don't even need to preach the gospel to them.
Okay.
So primitive Baptists think the gospel is irrelevant to salvation. Of course, once the elect realize that they are elect, they should join a church and get baptized. But even if the elect never hear the gospel, they're going to be saved anyway. For this reason, some primitive Baptists ended up becoming universalist, believing everyone is going to be saved. Primitive Baptists split from the other Baptists during the Second Great Awakening when everyone wanted to share the gospel and evangelize, and Primitive Baptists didn't want to do that. The Waldensians were basically Protestant before it was cool. Back in the 1200s, this guy Peter Waldo lived a life of poverty on purpose. He criticized the corruption and wealth of the papacy. He denied...
Yeah, so when you look at like the 1200s, you don't see it a lot, but once you get to the 13 and 1400s, you start getting what's called the proto-reformers. Proto meaning, before, like the pre-reformers, right? There were people who came before, people like John Wycliffe in the 1400s. I think he was 1400s. And John Wycliffe starts translating the Bible into the common vernacular. You got people like John Huss who questioned the Roman teaching of transubstantiation, and he gets burned at the stake. Actually, he ends up getting burned at the stake. You get a lot of proto-reformers at this time because most people are starting to recognize, that are paying attention, are starting to recognize the church is getting super corrupt. And so there's like a 200 to 300 year period of proto-reformation before the full Reformation actually kicks into gear in the 16th century.
Purgatory, he denied transubstantiation and believed in spiritual presence instead, and he translated the Bible into the language of the people. Because of this, he was excommunicated, but his followers still lived on as the Waldensians. When the Calvinist Reformation happened in the 1500s, most of the Waldensians just joined the Reformed churches because their theology was basically the same. But there are still some Waldensians today left over in places like Italy. Finally, we have the ancient Church of the East.
That's like a really cool tradition. Like, you're the first reformers in some ways. I've never even heard of them, but that's really, really cool. John Waldo, one of the first people to really articulate like a Reformation theology to get the church, the institutional church, back to the roots of the faith and focusing on the correct things. And wow, it's just really, really cool.
East. Now, the thing they split from is already kind of weird. It's the Assyrian Church of the East, which is the historic Nestorian church that goes all the way back to Nestorius, who was excommunicated for refusing to say that Mary is the mother of God. The Assyrian Church of the East has been the historic form of Christianity in Persia ever since ancient times. And we've
talked about this before. The problem with saying Mary is not the mother of God is you're denying that she gave birth to God, which is denying, because a lot of people are like, well, she's the mother of Jesus, not God. It's like, well, the hypostatic union is true. Jesus is both fully human and fully God. So she gave birth to a full human in Jesus, but also gave birth to God. If that sounds crazy to you, that's because it is a miracle, right? And that's what's awesome about it.
East has been the historic form of Christianity in Persia ever since ancient times, and they even converted China to Christianity in the 600s. Now, pretty recently, the ancient Church of the East split from the Assyrian Church of the East for the same reason that the true Orthodox split from the Eastern Orthodox. This is literally Nestorian true Orthodoxy. And then, a priest that you might have heard of split from this. Mari Emanuel split from the ancient Church of the East to become his own non-denominational pastor. It's funny that a lot of young men have converted to Eastern Orthodoxy because of Mari Emanuel, when he is in fact a non-denominational Nestorian. So most of these groups are small and the product of some obscure schism. So what this tells us is that schism is always a temptation that we should avoid, no matter what our denomination is. Instead, we should follow Jesus' prayer that all Christians would be one. Thank you for...
I will say this is probably like the thing that RZ is most controversial for, is his like anti-schism stance, and people are really mad about it, man. Like the PCA or the GMC, which is the Global Methodist Church, which split away from the United Methodist Church recently. The ACNA, the Anglican Church in North America, these conservative groups that split away over the last 25 years, they're really upset about this position because RZ is very influential in it. I think I had never considered that position before, until I heard him talking about it. And it really does make a lot of sense. Like schism just ends up making everything worse in the end. But people don't like that opinion. I just think it's really interesting. So really good video. I liked learning. The Waldensians was the coolest one. Let me know in the comments what you thought was the coolest one. I think the Waldensians were definitely the coolest. I'm going to go read about them some more because if there's some left in Europe, I'm going to Europe here in a couple weeks, and I want to see if I can find a Waldensian church. That sounds awesome. So yeah. Really, really good video. Make sure you go drop a like and subscribe to RZ. As always, we enjoy watching his videos. But if you liked my commentary today, make sure you drop a like and subscribe into the channel. That's the best way that you can help a young channel like mine. And we'll be doing our celebration probably late this week for our 1,000 subs. So one of the next videos I do is going to be a post with a link asking for people to submit questions for the 1,000 sub Q&A. So that's going to be coming up at the end of the week. But until next time, I'm Reverend Matt, and I'm the Connectionalist. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.